Hello, everyone. Dr. Frankie Bashan here for another episode of Love, Laughs, and Lessons. And we are deep into the Matchmaker series. We have another amazing matchmaker on today who I can't wait to introduce you to. But first, I just want to say, for those of you who are new to our podcast, I'm a clinical psychologist, a board-certified sex therapist. I'm also the CEO of Little Gay Book and Little Black Book Matchmaking. And I'm thrilled to be here with you all. I have a co-host who I'm going to hand over so she can introduce herself to you.
Hey everyone, I'm Denise Rai along with Dr. Frankie. We are so excited and we are happy to have as our guest Amy Andersen. Amy's a renowned matchmaker from the San Francisco Bay Area. She's over 20 years of experience. She's known as the Cupid of Silicon Valley. Yeah, let that sink in. So Amy's specialty is in connecting selective professionals to meaningful relationships. So Amy combines intuition and all of those great things to help you create intimate connections. And she's celebrated for her discretion and also emotional intelligence. Her personalized approach as a dating coach and consultant has made her a sought-after figure in the matchmaking circles. Despite her low-key approach, her reputation speaks for itself and she attracts clients worldwide. Amy's personal success and love mirrors her professional achievements. She's been married since 2008 to Alex. Don't know why I'm telling you her personal business, but
because we want to know. We want to know all of it.
Yeah, but I just felt that you need to know that she knows what she's doing.
Yeah.
They share a passion for travel, art, and fitness, and enjoy family life with their son and rescue dogs. Listen, Amy is more than a matchmaker. She's a facilitator of true love, and we're just so happy to have you on our show. Welcome, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me be here. I'm really honored and just excited to talk to both of you about love and matchmaking. So super exciting to kick off the new year and talk about dating.
Yes, love it. It's like our favorite subject here.
Absolutely.
So you're in the Bay too.
Yes. So I'm in Silicon Valley. I've been here for a long time, and that's where I really developed the idea for my business, Links Dating, when I was initially a young entrepreneur living in Palo Alto, right near Stanford University. And back then was in a really serious relationship with the guy. And at that time, that is when I developed the idea for Links, because I was networking and meeting all of these single individuals, mostly whom were men, and really kind of lamenting about the dating scene in Silicon Valley. They're like, dude, where are the women? And I'm like, I don't know. I just moved here. Don't ask me. I'm the wrong person to really ask. But it kind of dawned on me that there is something really unusual with the social landscape in Silicon Valley. And that's when kind of the light bulb went off in my brain thinking, okay, there's something unique here. Let me try to like crack that code and figure, what's going on here, basically.
I'm intrigued. So what is it?
Well, so the deal is there's a lot of men, and back then when I developed the idea, a dearth of eligible women. And that's when I saw a very similar trend in San Francisco with a lot of my female friends who I grew up with. I grew up in Marin County, so right across the Golden Gate Bridge, as many of you know. And a lot of my female friends were like, where are the good guys? And I was like, well, many of them are in San Francisco, but maybe they're not necessarily looking for commitment, although I'm kind of generalizing. That was my observation, though. So I thought bridging that gap and creating those opportunities for those two very different demographics. Silicon Valley women meet Silicon Valley guy. Hopefully a love connection happens. That was it. Really it.
So are you working with people who are looking for serious long-term relationships?
For sure. So really my demographic, irrespective of age or background or education, is kind of that baseline of somebody who is truly what I would call marriage-minded, commitment-minded, and really desirous of that for sure. And then building connections through that. And for some people who have not been, married before and don't have kids and really share those goals, being able to start a family with the right partner.
So it's making me think about the Peter Pan effect. because I'm in the Bay Area.
Yes.
So just
Yes.
say a little bit about that for listeners
Yes.
who don't know. And how does that, is that challenging for you in any way? Yeah.
Yes, 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 and yes. So the Peter Pan kind of effect in theory is, there's a lot of these great guys out there, right? On paper, they are really well educated, they're dynamic, they're keeping active, leading really interesting lives, they have cool jobs, careers they're passionate about. They have a nice little retirement nest egg kind of in the works. But the issue can be that they're not necessarily looking for commitment. And I think the hard thing is some of these kind of so-called Peter Pans, it's almost like a split personality. They might think they want that, but they're not necessarily ready for that. And then the other part is they're just having so much fun, playing kind of the dating game and meeting lots of women in a really high volume approach. And so for women out there, it's really hard to kind of ascertain who's the real deal and who's actually ready for commitment from like who's kind of the playboy, like having fun. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But part of me thinks like some of these different dating apps should have like very specific disclosures, like, and maybe some do, maybe I'm just not aware of it, like just looking to have fun or looking for something more serious, right? Because I think so many of us get frustrated as you're navigating kind of the dating world and trying to kind of find your own and your identity and figure out, who you're looking for. And then you're on all these different dates and then can get really bummed out and almost like the wind out of your sail because it's just hard to figure out, okay, who's legit and who's like not necessarily looking for anything other than like a hookup. And again, that's fine, but just like be upfront about it, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So those are the Peter Pans. And when I was a single woman in San Francisco, I dated a lot of them. I had my heart broken by a couple of big crushes. And actually one guy that I was I don't know if you've ever watched the TV show The Bachelor, but
At least a few episodes. I think most of us have at least seen one.
a couple of episodes.
Yeah.
So on The Bachelor, a lot of the contestants, they're holding out for the final rose, the red rose that The Bachelor hands the different contestants. And they're just kind of, they're nervously waiting for it. Well, way back when, it must have been like 2004 or so, I was on a date with one of these guys that I didn't know was a Peter Pan at the time, but I was trying to convince myself because, we had this really great chemistry, I'd say an emotional chemistry, a physical attraction towards each other. And I was thinking, okay, like in my mind, I'm going to get that rose. Like he's taking me out to a nice restaurant and we're having this great conversation, maybe 6 dates in or so. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's going to ask me to go exclusive. Well, little did I know, next thing, we're having a sip of our wine and his eyes are kind of shifting around.
Oh, no.
Oh, boy.
He said, I asked him, I was super direct. I said, dude, what are you doing? He said, oh, the BBD. And I said, the what, a who, a huh? And he said, the bigger, better deal. Literally like that. I was like, whoa. Wow, that is just a knife through my heart. Like, I guess I'm not getting the rose tonight. But it really like showcased kind of I'd say the highs and the lows of the dating landscape that I had experienced. And it was really powerful for me as a matchmaker because I could so empathize and so relate to just what it's like being out there. So part of my story, what I did was I really took into account like what I was looking for because I realized, what? I've dated a lot of these guys, many of them Peter Pans, and it ain't working for me. So how am I going to find the right partner? And part of that was getting really clear about what I was looking for and frankly, taking time off from dating altogether, just kind of working on myself, which was a really important part. But the other really interesting kind of, I'd say, insight for me was actually moving. So I actually disrupted the familiar and that comfort zone of living in my cute little studio apartment in San Francisco. And I said, I could stay here for the next 10 years and be in the same place and be out with all these different guys and have fun, but no results that I was looking for. So that's when I decided to kind of disrupt the familiar and move to a place that I would consider target rich, which was actually back to Silicon Valley, and ultimately meet my guy. And so it's kind of a lesson I share with a lot of my clients, just like if you're not finding the results, really think about what you're doing to find people and really take into account if things aren't working for you, then create that shift. But you're really the only one that can do that. You're in charge of your own life, right?
Right.
And you bring up a really good point, which is
Mhm.
that sometimes we do have to consider relocating.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. We're
It's
such
real.
creatures of habit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that that can be a really profoundly scary thing when it's like, why would you give up something where it's comfortable? And you have your social network and you have your routines and your dry cleaner and your nail place and whatever, your friends. But it's like, I think it's really a powerful thing to kind of look within and ask yourself what at the end of the day is important in life and what your goals are professionally, personally. And if something's not working for you, step out of that comfort zone, because if you don't, you're never going to know. Right. And that's scary, but it's so exciting if you can do that. And so sometimes it does mean moving.
Yeah. And people will often respond with, when I make that suggestion, like, well, I'm not going to change my whole life to find somebody. When the time is right, it'll happen. That person will appear. Really?
Right.
My response is like,
How's that
how long?
working?
Yeah. How's that working for you?
Exactly.
How long have you been waiting for the right person to appear, doing the same exact thing you've been doing?
Exactly. Exactly. You got to be proactive about it. I think that that's like the name of the game, is like just being smart and what I would call kind of strategic and just being really proactive. And I tell my clients, if you really want to meet somebody, treat it like a second job. Like get out there and you got to hustle and you got to figure it out. Right. And there's a lot of resources like your amazing podcast and books out there and awesome tools to really help people navigate, but you got to be smart about it. And you can't be sitting around like, when is he or she going to show up? That's in the movies. That's make believe.
Yes. Yeah. And like I often say, anything really worthwhile takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, a lot of intention, a lot of commitment, all of that.
Yes.
So,
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Absolutely. So true. And I think not to like get down on that, because it's so, I think, easy to just kind of get down mentally in the dumps, like, oh, so frustrated. And then that can kind of lead to being jaded. And so I think like once somebody is clear in terms of what they're looking for, then really creating that plan of thinking about, okay, I have this vision of this type of person I'm looking for. Where is he or she? Where do they hang out in their free time? Then put yourself in those environments and really, again, being strategic about it. And it should be exciting. But if you do find yourself kind of like mentally like, oh, just taxed or fatigued, which is normal, then take a break. Just take a breather from it.
Exactly. Exactly. So who are your clients? Are they mostly men? Are they mostly women?
Yeah, they're both. So men and women, I work with both genders. It's when I first started my business, I had a really set demographic of women being only between the ages of 25 to 45 and men 30 to 50. And I was really firm on that. So if somebody was like 51, I'm like, no. 24, I was like, I don't think so. So I don't know why I created those kind of arbitrary like numbers, but I realized over the years, like there's so many people out there in the world, in the Bay Area, that are looking for love of all ages and backgrounds. So now, 20 years into this, working with early 20 somethings to 70-year-olds. And I love that. Definitely seeing a trend of, I would say, 50-plus-year-olds. A lot of people kind of coming out of a long marriage and now really kind of entering the dating world, dating, going through divorce or through a separation and just trying to kind of find their sea legs with that and not get overwhelmed. So that's kind of my demographic. I would say the other kind of overarching principles are people who are educated, interesting, doing hobbies outside of their jobs. They have a job. And again, they're commitment minded. They're really hopeful that there's somebody out there who would be a great partner for them.
Yeah, yeah. What other services do you offer? I heard you say coaching. Yes. Do you coach your clients along with their matchmaking
I do.
programs?
Yes. So I would say it's a very light coaching that's more like a conversation like this. Years ago, I used to do kind of a more formalized, like sit down for 3 hours with me and we're going to talk, dating. It was much more kind of serious. And these days I realized like people, my demographic, they're looking more just for guidance and kind of light coaching, like almost like a little bird is on their shoulder, like just give them a little nuggets of wisdom, like think about this, approach it that way, don't do this. And people like that. It's just more conversational and it's less, I think, kind of, heavy or threatening or intense, which can then kind of make people, I think, tense up in the context of dating.
Yeah.
I think also there are plenty of people that think that they're perfectly good and fine at dating,
Mhm.
but they keep finding that they're perpetually single, or they can't get from date one to date two, or
Yeah.
get into a serious relationship.
Yes, absolutely. So I would call myself an early stage dating strategist, where that's really kind of my jam. I love helping people figure out, to your point, from getting from date one to date two into date three, and then kind of being in cruise control and just, enjoying the process. But I think so many people do get really tripped up in the early stages, because I think at the end of the day, a lot of people either treat meeting somebody almost like a business interview. And so they can come across as like robotic and stiff and like, frankly, just not themselves. When they should be flirting and keeping it light energetically and just like more chill. Or I think people, on the opposite end, I think a lot of people just complicate things. As we all know, they play games, right? They start
So frustrating.
playing head games, or just saying, okay, he texted me, but I'll text him back in a week because I want to play really hard to get. It's like, just dial all that back. And just my whole motto is do what your grandparents did, because chances are your grandma and your grandpa didn't play games. They weren't ghosting each other back then. They weren't overcomplicating things. If the grandpa was into the grandma, he sent a very clear signal that he was interested, and she either said yes and kind of leaned into that opportunity, or said no very politely. So I think it's like when we really isolate things to a much more simple level, that is when people see results. I think it's when people get too in their head and they're robotic or they're playing games. That's when there's no second dates, right? That's when like people get really frustrated and kind of spin in this vicious cycle.
I agree. I would say just be real. Don't play a game. If you're interested, show them you're interested.
Exactly.
It's so simple, but unfortunately, we just can't get our clients to realize how simple it is. And it doesn't hurt, right? Because you really didn't know this person anyway.
Right.
So if the opportunity is there and you click, that's amazing. Yes. And if you don't click, that's okay too.
Totally. Yes.
A lid for every pot.
Oh, I love that. Yes, absolutely. And my whole thing is like, okay, even if you know in your heart of hearts, in your logical mind, that this is not your person, like keep that door open, because like create that friendship and just bring things down to a human level. Like you both are single, you both are looking for somebody. If you know you're not a love match, that's cool. So keep that door open for opportunities of like friendship, because you never know, right? Like that person that's not your romantic partner might invite you to their next dinner party. And at that event, you might meet like the love of your life, right? So like just be human about it and be kind and just be compassionate, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Couldn't agree. Yeah, absolutely.
So do you work with clients all over the country?
I would say very kind of selectively. So my demographic in terms of kind of geography really remains Bay Area and kind of bread and butter, like kind of the target zone would definitely be Silicon Valley. but I do represent clients kind of selectively across the US and internationally. I would say it really depends, like when they submit their information and we have an intake, if I genuinely feel I can help this person, especially if we're kind of in a geography where if they're looking for candidates in a specific geography and I don't have people there, I'm going to redirect them to another matchmaking firm.
And how do you access your pool? Where do you get your matches from?
So we've been really lucky that there's a lot of inbound traffic that comes to the Links website. I'm actually very old school. I'm probably one of the few matchmakers that inputs everything into my little database by hand. I don't have like an automated system, so I'm very kind of the dinosaur over here in Silicon Valley, like like inputting everything by hand. That way I can really kind of get a clear sense of who the prospect is and quickly kind of determine if I can help them or if I'm redirecting them to another matchmaker or if I'm just adding them to my passive database. I would say the other interesting thing is my team, which is a really small team, does a fair amount of recruiting vis-a-vis professional platforms like LinkedIn and sometimes social media. Furthermore, our social media has really taken kind of its own life, which has been really interesting. We are seeing that as an interesting resource, like just kind of where it's very expansive and it opens up really cool opportunities of people we had no idea about that apply for links, typically to be part of our passive database. So I would say those typically are the ways that people are joining links.
Yeah. Can you tell the audience, I'm sorry, Frankie, about your passive database and what that is, just for folks that don't know?
That's what I was
you.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So there's really two ways to participate, either becoming the premium client or being the passive member. The passive database is a fantastic way to really, I would say, increase the probability of meeting somebody nice. You are effectively applying to be in our database. And I can provide your viewers and listeners with a link to that. Somebody just applies to be part of it and they submit their information, then I'm kind of inputting it by hand into my little database. And the idea is when we're running searches for our different premium clients, that individual that applied to be part of the database, their name might populate as a candidate for one of these searches. So it's actually really, in my mind, like a no-brainer, very exciting thing for somebody to do. And I would suggest that individuals do this across multiple different matchmaking databases, because again, you just literally never know. And you might be the perfect needle in a haystack that a particular matchmaker is looking for their client. So it's free. There's no fees involved. It's a really easy way. And you just kind of sit back and do your own thing, live your life, and we might reach out to you with a match.
And then when you reach out, do you interview them?
Yes. Typically my preference is in person, and that's kind of my new thing too, just for anybody, is like getting off Zoom and doing things in person, which I realized I really miss a lot. So going back to kind of old school, I guess you could say, and doing in person. So if they're in the Bay, I would love to have a coffee with them. If they're outside of the Bay Area, then doing Zoom or Skype, whatever makes sense, and doing a quick screening. And sometimes my clients are really particular. They will want me to ask the candidate, the respective individual, just some really specific questions as kind of an added screening mechanism. So we really ensure we're making a solid match and not wasting anybody's time.
So the things that are really important to them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it could be anything from, if the candidate's open to them having kids or having more kids or a particular religion or, specific hobbies. In a lot of my clients' cases, like if that candidate is willing to relocate to the client's hometown. So that's something for, your listeners to think about, like really dig deep, like, would you be willing to relocate for love? Like, it's an exciting thing.
It is exciting. It is exciting. I wish more people were open to the possibilities of starting something new and just jumping out there. Take a leap of faith. Love is so amazing. Absolutely. And what's holding you back? If it isn't, you can always visit, right?
Yes.
That's what I say. You can always visit. There's planes. or you could be bi-coastal. It doesn't, your relationship, your new relationship doesn't have to look like your old relationship or any other relationship. You can co-create what you want it to look like.
That's a great point. And I think kind of COVID, coming out of COVID, we've seen so much, just kind of, I'd say, a shift in how people look at relationships, right? Where kind of love almost has no boundaries, I'd like to think. And that includes geographic boundaries, where it's like if somebody does become bi-coastal, right? And they're kind of toggling between cities, like it can work. And I've seen it work. So to your point, I think it's a great mindset to be in for sure.
Stepping out of your comfort zone. It's going back to what we talked about earlier.
Absolutely. So true.
So your ideal client, you touched on it earlier, but maybe say a little bit so folks are thinking, okay, Amy might be the best fit for me as my matchmaker.
Yeah, my ideal client is somebody, I would say, who has put some thought and work into themselves. So they have done some, just kind of, they've given themselves, self-love, work on themselves, either through therapy, reading, different books on dating and relationships. They've really kind of taken time off dating maybe to get really clear in terms of A, who they are, and B, what they're looking for. And also kind of somebody who is very willing to almost, I'd say, step out of their current kind of thinking. So when they engage in the services of a matchmaker, they go in trusting the matchmaker, that the matchmaker truly has their best interest in mind. And we're not in the game to kind of create failures for our clients. Like, we want to create more love in the world, like all matchmakers do. So I think it's really fundamentally important when somebody has kind of taken that time to work on themselves, is really clear in terms of what they're looking for, and is really willing to be part of kind of the matchmaking team, in the sense that, they look at the matchmaker as like, okay, we are collaborating together, we're on the same team, and I am going in 2 feet into the process. I'm jumping in right now, and I'm going to trust the matchmaker. So that's really important. And somebody, for me, who's a really good communicator, I think that's really important. What doesn't work so well for me in working with a potential client is where they kind of go dark on me, and I'm like, okay, I need feedback. Like, how was the date? And they're not necessarily communicating, because if they're not communicating with me, they're definitely not going to be communicating with their potential matches. So I really like people who are strong communicators in whatever fashion. If you like to text me your feedback, cool. If you want to jump on the phone, do in person, whatever it is, a smoke signal, I do not care. Just communicate. So that's important.
Something, anything.
Just anything. So definitely important. And then just somebody who's like really excited at the possibilities, just like goes into this process like really optimistic and ready to have fun. Because when we kick this off, like really starting the process, once we've kind of gotten over the hump of some of the homework and the contract to become a client, then it really actually becomes quite fun and very exciting. So somebody who has that just optimistic attitude is a great potential client. And then kind of, I'd say the basics again for me, there's somebody who leads an interesting life. Like, I love my clients because I learn something from everybody. I truly learn so many different things from my clients because I'm working with really fascinating, really interesting people. And that's what I love. Super diverse, super cool people, super dynamic, and just really good people. I would say they're all good eggs. So I like to work with nice people too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Us too.
For sure. For sure. All the nice people are with the matchmakers, really.
Yes. For sure. Absolutely. And that's, it's interesting you say that. So kind of on that note, I had a couple of really lovely in-person meetings over the holidays with prospects, with a couple of guys. And then after they're like, this is really awesome, but I'm just going to kind of stay on the dating apps for a while. And it really kind of got me thinking that a lot of the individuals in our network, in our database, are not necessarily on the apps. A lot of our clientele and those who are passive in the database really crave something anonymous and something where they're not necessarily having to create that kind of public persona through an app, and also something that's trusted and vetted. Right. So I think there's a lot of just kind of weight and importance with kind of the vetting these days when it comes to kind of meeting people. And certainly for your listeners, for your audience to understand that a lot of people that do matchmaking agencies are not necessarily on the app. Some are, which is great, but many of them are not for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, we find that too, that they
Yeah.
want privacy, and
Yeah,
we work with clients that have notoriety that are, right?
totally.
They are afraid that they're going to be pursued because of their money or their success and that kind of thing.
Exactly, exactly. Or having one of their colleagues see them like, oh, there's,
Yes.
Bill. Just
Right,
Yeah.
right.
awkward moment. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
can you just, just for general knowledge and for the audience, explain the difference between matchmaking and online dating? Because a lot of people think it's one and the same, and it really, really isn't.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, one of the just fundamental differences is you're either dealing with an algorithm through the computer, through the kind of said technology, or a human being, right? So our clients are hiring us because, we have experience and we are applying our intuition and just wealth of experience understanding human behavior that really help kind of create potential matches as compared to online or a dating app, which is an algorithm trying to kind of predict potential matches based on a lot of kind of data. So I'd say that is one of the if we're going to really kind of break things down to just something super simple, that is the difference. So computer versus human, pick one.
I also think like we build relationships, right, as matchmakers. Like we have clients that return, right? They may have a relationship and they come back to us, and we're
Yes.
building relationships with our catches, with our candidates.
Yes.
So there's accountability in a way a dating app will never have.
Exactly, 1,000%. And also, another really important point about this is the apps and online have limited numbers of people. And we see also a lot of the same people kind of crossing over to various different apps. One of the last kind of statistics I saw for, for one person who's on, let's say, Hinge, they're typically on 4 to 5 different apps. So there's a lot of carryover with the exact same demographic. So the important thing about that is for matchmakers, one of the big appeals for a prospect, who might become a client or joining the passive database, is that us matchmakers have really robust networks. In fact, matchmakers are really no good unless they have their own substantial network, right? And they know what they're doing because they have intuition and they've done it many times before. So there's, I think, a lot of appeal to joining different matchmakers networks because these are very diverse databases that are probably not on the apps. And often have hundreds and in some cases thousands upon thousands of people in them, which makes it really exciting and filled with possibilities.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
I
for
think
us, that's exciting, right? When you've
it
got
is exciting.
all these potential matches that we can really hone in.
Yes. 1,000%. And also, I think one of the cool things for your listeners is that many matchmakers, we reach out to one another. So the matchmaker community, there's a lot of matchmakers out there. I think statistically, something I read, there's around 2,200 in the United States. Maybe it's international, but the point is, it's a large community.
Well, that's beautiful.
That being said, many of us are part of a really unique alliance, a matchmakers alliance. And so what's great about this through our trusted professional connections is that we can reach out to one another and present our clients where we're really actively enlisting the help, kind of a call to action to various matchmakers, just saying, do you have anybody in your database who could be a wonderful match for my great client? So we help each other out, which is really, I think, actually very unique as compared to different industries, where different industries might be much more closed off to those possibilities or view each other as, threatening or competitors.
Yeah, the collaboration is beautiful. It took me many, many years. This is how we met, you and I, at a conference in Mexico. Many years I was just, because we were working mainly in the LGBTQ community. I kept thinking, well, how am I going to be able to collaborate with other matchmakers that are focusing on the heterosexual community? How are we going to help each other? And it took me years before I found where I really started to get engaged with the alliance. And it's been such a blessing to feel that, oh my gosh, that energy of all the other matchmakers that are doing the matchmaking, just like we've been doing, that, like the real deal matchmaking, that who really care about their clients. And wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree. It's been amazing to really see eye to eye and be like, oh my gosh, you totally get it. Cause you've like been through that too. Like really, truly like understanding each other on such a fundamental level has been amazing. Cause for me, just like you, for I'd say the first, like almost the first 15 years, I was kind of like, shut off, like on my own island, really doing my thing. Not necessarily thinking about other collaborations, just thinking, why maybe. And then when I became part of the alliance, just the world opened up. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so many other great matchmakers, and to help each other when we're doing our searches has been great.
Cast such a wider net. Huge.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Go ahead, Denise. I interrupted you.
No, I was just agreeing because I started out differently, right? So I started out already in community with Matchmaking Institute. And so just a different experience of always being kind of enmeshed and feeling so supported. I can't even imagine what it would be like without that.
Yeah,
right?
lonely.
So yeah.
Very lonely.
Very.
So true. And on this note, I have dating advice. Like, because us matchmakers are really leaning into our community, I think it's really important for single people to lean into their existing communities, really tap into your social networks and enlist the help of your friends, right? Don't be nervous or shy or feel weird about asking for help and just saying, listen, this is who I am. You know me by now. And this is the type of person I'm looking for. Like, if you know anybody, set me up, right? And really kind of tapping into that as just one of the many resources, right? So I think sometimes people can overlook their own community that they love and they trust and are, just deeply rooted in as a really valuable resource when they're out there dating.
It's good. Very good point. So many singles. I think that there is unconsciously maybe some kind of, I don't know if shame is the right word of being single, but there shouldn't be. It is what it is. And if you want change, then, my father used to say the closed mouth doesn't get fed, right? So
absolutely. So true. And there should be absolutely no shame in it at all. Right. And I know plenty of people out there who choose to be single, because that is what they want in their life. And they're very proud of that. And that, I think that's amazing, right? To own it. And that's fine. Right. But if you're actively out there looking for somebody, definitely lean into all the different possibilities and try to have fun with it. And remember that, if something's not working for you, just kind of shake it up. It's like I'm trying to kind of use an example, like a bottle of like salad dressing, like shake it up and, just mix up the routine, right? And kind of step outside of your comfort zone too. My whole thing, what I'm trying to teach people is like, just be friendly, right? Say hi to the next stranger when you're in line at Whole Foods or Trader Joe's or wherever you like to go. And again, like, see what happens when you actually are friendly and you make eye contact and you say hi and maybe introduce yourself. See what happens.
Can change things. A simple hello. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. It started with hello.
I think because of the pandemic, some of us are struggling with getting back into those simple hellos.
Yes, exactly, for sure. And I see it all the time, but it's like, again, I think what we've learned today, it's like you never know unless you kind of try and just try it once. And it's okay to kind of stumble around a little bit, but pick yourself back up and try it again and just see what happens because you never know. And I think post-pandemic, like people are just craving like in real life, whatever that definition means, right? If it's events or going back into the workplace or, just friendly people, I think like just beautiful things happen when people are just friendly in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the outcome most likely is going to be positive, like, and if it's not, then good. They saved you time. That person showed you who they are very early on, and that's it. You move right along.
Exactly. Keep walking.
Keep walking.
Exactly. No big deal. Absolutely. Just keep walking. But I think there's these days there's a lot of interesting networking events that are starting to kind of happen. And, just again, even tapping in back to the community idea, like for instance, one of my good friends who's in the biotech industry, she's like, oh, you should come to this networking event of mine. And I'm like, well, I'm not in biotech, but that thinking of mine was kind of closed-minded because you never know who's going to be at those events, right? I could strike up a conversation with a really nice single woman or single guy and invite them to be part of my database. So even for us matchmakers to kind of keep that open mindset of different infinite possibilities, you literally never know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So true.
So Amy, how can folks find you?
Absolutely. So I have a website. It's linksdating.com, linksdating.com. You can also shoot me an email. My email is amy@linksdating.com. And on social media, I'm Ms. So that's ms.linksdating. And that's on Instagram. So we have a lot of fun with our Instagram posts and try to keep them really fun and light and at times goofy and humorous.
Yeah, I had a chance, I think when I was in Mexico, to look at your Instagram. It's awesome.
Oh, thank you. Well, I have a great team who really guides me along the way. But I think the key is we really try to keep the messaging just approachable and light because otherwise dating can be so serious. So we try to just make it humorous and really real advice for everybody.
Yeah, good.
Perfect.
Sounds good to
Good,
me.
good.
So do they get on your website, fill out that free profile? Is that how to start it up?
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Would absolutely love that. And like I said, I'll be inputting your data by hand. So right into
I
my
love that.
little
And
database.
you've been at it how many years?
20 years.
Okay, and you're still
By
doing it
hand.
by hand.
I know. Yeah, I need to, yeah, I'll get on that. Well, I won't horrify you with sharing that for the first many years, I operated my business on flashcards. So I wrote everything by hand and my whole, studio apartment was covered in flashcards. So when a client would call, I'd be bouncing the flashcards, trying to find, their flashcard with information. I mean, it was not a pretty thing.
I love it. I had the dry erase boards just all around.
I love it. I love it.
And folders.
That works.
And folders, which I still have my whatever. At that time, I ended up at 300 or 400 folders. I finally was like, you know what? I need a CRM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's amazing though, but it's like we don't necessarily get a guidebook of how to become a matchmaker, right? So it's kind of like we're thrown into the middle of this like craziness and you got to kind of, as a business owner and matchmaker, figure it out, right? And do what works for you. And then at a certain point, get your CRM or not, and just make it work.
You make it work. We all have a different system.
Totally.
Amy, what a pleasure. Such a
Oh,
pleasure.
Such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fantastic.
Yeah. Awesome.
For sure.
All right. Everyone, thanks for tuning in. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.